A few days ago, I released an updated Melee Nightmare Zone guide. I left out Range and Magic in that guide because of how long it already was. So today, I will be making a follow-up to that guide and be going over how to train both your Range and Magic here at Nightmare Zone. Timestamps are in the description if you need to skip around. So I know I went over how to get here, but in case this is your first Nightmare Zone video you're watching by me, I will go over what Nightmare Zone is, how to get here, yada yada. If you know all of this, check the description and skip ahead to when I start going over gear, floor setups, and inventories. If you haven't, well, here we go. Let's start talking about what Nightmare Zone is. So let's start off with what Nightmare Zone is. Nightmare Zone is a combat-based minigame that is located north of Yanil. It involves you fighting bosses that you have fought from previous quests you've already completed, sometimes one by one, and sometimes a bunch of them thrown together all on the same floor. It is noted that if you die here, it is a safe death. You will not lose your items, and this is so you hardcore Ironmans out there don't really freak out. If you die, you're not going to lose your red helmet or anything. It's completely safe. But how do we get to Nightmare Zone? I'm glad you asked. The easiest way to get here is through the use of a minigame teleport. But there are other options, such as using the Watchtower teleport and walking east, or using a Nil House teleport tab, which is just using a scroll of redirection on a house tab. This requires 50 construction. Or teleporting to your house if it's in Yanil. Use the fairy ring code CLS and walk northwest, or CIQ and walk through Yanil. Ring of Dueling to Castle Wars. Spirit Tree to Treenon Village and walk southeast. You get the point, there's a lot of different ways to get here. But I want to point out that if you do use the minigame teleport, you need to have first unlocked the ability to actually participate in the minigame first before you can use that minigame teleport. But as you can see, there's a ton of different ways to get here. So if you can't use the minigame teleport, well, you're in no short order of other ways to get here. The requirements for participating in the minigame are actually very simple. You need to have any 5 of these quests done, and I know this is a very large list of quests, so if you're looking for just 5 very easy quests to get done so you can get in here, the 5 quests I would recommend that are very easy to get done would be The Lost City, Mountain Daughter, Treenon Village, Vampire Slayer, and the Depths of Despair. I know Depths of Despair is something you don't hear very often, but there's a lot of benefits to getting that quest done. One of them being that you get access to the secret sand crab training area. That's not really Nightmare Zone related, but it's good for starting off your account. And then 2, you do unlock the sand snake, which has very low defenses and relatively high HP. So it's a very good boss to have unlocked in your floor. So before you come to Nightmare Zone to train Range or Magic, I would highly suggest you have 70 in either Range or Magic. And then if you have the ability to train defense and have at least 60 defense, that way you can tank some hits if you're going to be doing the AFK method that I'll be talking about later. I would highly suggest having these. That way you can actually put out decent DPS. If you don't have below this, and usually things like rocks, sand, or ammonite crabs are usually better, just for the fact that they have, well, next to no stats at all, so it's much easier to tank them and deal damage to them. But once you have those levels, feel free to make your way over to Nightmare Zone. So how does Nightmare Zone work? Well, the minigame requires there to be coins put into a coffer, and they can be deposited in increments of 1,000 GP up to a maximum of max cash, which for this instance is not exact max cash, but it's the max amount you can really put in, would be 2,147,483,000. And the amount of coins you'll need per game are dependent on the type of modes that you pick. So you have practice mode, which is free. You have endurance mode, which costs either 1 or 5k for the normal or hard mode. And then you have rumble, which costs 2k or 6k depending on normal or hard. Then you also have the customizable rumble, which is 22 or 26k for normal or hard. But if you have the max number of quest points, which at this point, the point of this video is 269, then when going into Nightmare Zone, the price of a customizable rumble will be reduced by 10k, bringing it down to 12 and 16k for a normal and hard customizable rumble. A quick rundown of the different modes. Practice mode lets you select one boss that you've already beaten and fight them 1v1 until one of you dies. No points or XP is rewarded. Endurance is where you fight every boss you have unlocked 1v1 in waves, so you'll never fight more than one at a time. And this will end when either you kill all the bosses that you have or they kill you. Experience and points will be awarded normally. Finally, you have Rumble mode, which is the mode most people will be using and we will be using to example a lot of things in this guide. It will randomly select 4 bosses from the list that you have completed or selected if you're using a customizable Rumble, and throw them at you at the same time. When one of the bosses dies, another will spawn and take its place, and this will continue until either you die or you drink the potion that is in the room to end the dream and leave the minigame. To start the dream, you need to have money put in the coffer and then speak to Dominic to start the dream, who is right next to the entrance and right next to the coffer. You then will need to decide what type of dream to start, and like I said before, we will be using Rumble for the example. You have a couple options with Rumble to do either a regular or a customizable. Customizable costs 20k more, but it allows you to not have some awful bosses in your run, making it easier to get experience during your run. But it should be noted that the less bosses you have unlocked, the less points you will have, or you will be receiving per kill. So if your aim is to be gaining points, you want to make sure that you're leaving as many bosses as possible to give yourself more points per kill. But if you're going for experience, then a customizable rumble is also very nice because it allows us to have very easy bosses with low defenses, low attack stats to make it easy to AFK. Something else to note about Rumble mode is that Rumble mode is the only mode that will have power-ups in it, and there are 4 different types. You have Recurrent Damage, Zapper, Power Surge, and Ultimate Force. Recurrent Damage is red and will deal extra damage when you hit. It does not give extra experience, however. The damage is based on the initial damage that you deal, and will do 3 cores of that damage to a monster. So for example, if you deal 12, you hit a 12, then the Recurrent Damage power-up will also deal a 9 to that monster, and it will last for 45 seconds. The Zapper is purple and will damage nearby monsters. It won't damage monsters that are immune to normal attacks like the Dagonoth Mother or Tanglefoot, however. The power-up will hit at a max hit for 8 and generally lasts around a minute. Something to note is that when you activate the Zapper will stay in the spot at which you activate it. So wherever it is where it's going to fire out from. So if you activate the Zapper and then run away from it and drag all the monsters with you, the Zapper is literally not going to hit anything. So if you activate a Zapper, try to stay around it so that way the Zapper actually does its damage to the monsters around you. Power Surge is yellow and fills up your special attack bar and then regenerates it for 20% every game tick, and it lasts for 45 seconds. So every 0.6 seconds you will get an additional 20% into your special attack pool after it's already been filled up by the initial use of the Power Surge. Finally, you have Ultimate Force, which is white. It will instantly kill all bosses that are currently alive. You will not get any points or experience for killing these monsters though, so it's generally only used when you're doing a points run and you try to clear a bad floor so that way you can get a fresh wave of new monsters. So when using range in Nightmare Zone, I initially thought that using range wasn't going to give you as many points as using the DH method. And if you're going to be using the DH method that I discussed in my last video, where you get super into it, you're using piety all the time, and you're constantly speccing and doing all of this, then I would imagine that you're getting more points per hour. But if you're doing just the relatively AFK method where you're not going in with like 11 super restores or whatever, you find that you actually get very similar points, or at least I did. So all that said and done, let's talk about what the setup actually is for this. So the monsters that you will be including are basically everything except the following bosses. You want to exclude Corrupt Lizardman, Witch's Experiment, Elvarg, Nazastrul, Dagonoth Mother, Tanglefoot, Glod, Chronozone, and Barrel Chest. The reason that you don't want any of these is the Lizardman will poison you and kill you. The Witch's Experiment is 4 phases, and you only get points for the last one, so it's a lot of extra killing that you don't need to do. Elvarg, for obvious reasons, he has Dragonfire. Nazastrul is bad. Dagonoth Mother requires you to have multiple combat styles, which we don't want. Tanglefoot can only be damaged to the magic secateurs. Glod drains your prayer. Chronozone requires you to be using magic, and Barrel Chest drains your prayer. The reason that we don't want to drain our prayer is that if we're not bringing in any kind of prayer restore, we don't want to have a ton of bosses that can drain our prayer. Yes, we're going to have things like Caramel, which can drain our prayer, but we want to try to minimize that effect as much as possible. The gear we will be using will be taking advantage of the fact that the defensive bonuses of these monsters have not increased from normal to hard, so we will be using Void or Elite Void to maximize this. A blowpipe with adamant darts is your best bet here. It's most cost efficient. You can use mithril darts if you want, but it ends up costing more money using mithril darts to output the same damage as you would with adamant darts due to the extra scales being used because of the extra shots that you have to put out with using mithril darts to put out the same damage as adamant. You will then want to have an Ava's Assembler, Necklace of Anguish, Archer's Ring, Amethyst Arrows if you're using a magic shortbow for your spec weapon, and Pagations. Obviously, downgrade wherever you need to. Your inventory will look like this. You'll have 7 Overloads, a Locator Orb or Rock Cake, Magic Shortbow Eye, or Dragon Throne Axes. It's up to you, whichever one you want. I prefer the Dragon Throne Axes, but I'll go into which one's better later. Range Gear Switch, Ice Gloves, and a Bone Crusher if you want it. And then finally fill the rest of your inventory with Absorbs. Like I said, you can swap out 4 Overloads and 7 Absorbs to put in Prayer Potions if you want to camp Rigor. This will increase your points per hour, but greatly increase the cost per point, so do it at your own risk. Then make sure you have your 26k in the coffer, talk to Dominic, and head inside. Drink your overload and get down to 1 HP. Switch to rapid if you haven't already, and start attacking the bosses you see. Keep in mind that you can pray mage to bring Caramel and Camille towards you, so you don't have to run them down. Avoid Damus and the Gelatinous Mother at all costs, and use an ultimate force to bring them down. If Farid comes out, switch to your range setup, your max range setup, and put on your ice gloves and focus him down so you can switch back to Void and get higher DPS. Prioritize staying at 1 HP since you have incredibly low defenses thanks to the Void armor. You will want to use all your power-ups in this style of floor except for Ultimate Force, which should only be used to only clear out a really bad floor, which is generally like 2 Gelatinous Mother or Damus type monsters. Also monsters like the Black Knight, or the Black Knight Titan, the Slaglith, and the Ice Troll King all have pretty high range defenses, so definitely okay to go ahead and use Ultimate Force on those guys to knock them out pretty quickly. For power surges, use your Magic Shortbow or Dragon Throne Axe specs before grabbing it, and then turn on Rigor if you're using the Dragon Throne Axes. Magic Shortbow spec actually is unaffected by prayer, so if you are using a Magic Shortbow spec, you don't need to worry about Rigor or Eagle Eye here. Spam the special attack bar since it fills it up for you, and make sure you're doing that to get the most DPS out. This was one of the most frustrating runs I ever had doing a point run. I had like a Caramel or a Camille. It seemed like every other boss spawn, so it was just annoying as all get out. I was still able to hit 500k points in 25 minutes though. Obviously this could vary based on the spawns you get. If you use Rigor the entire time, obviously that's going to increase it as well. Like I said, bosses to avoid trying to attack at all costs would be bosses like the Black Knight Titan, Slaglith, Arg, the Gelatinous Mother, Damus, things like that. They have high range defenses and make it very difficult to kill them quickly. Try using things like the Zapper or recurrent damage alongside Ultimate Force to try to get the bosses down faster. Like I said earlier with Zapper though, if you activate a Zapper, make sure to hold these guys pretty close to it so that way the Zapper can actually deal damage to it. Also a note with Slaglith, he gets very unaffected by the Zapper. The Zapper doesn't really do full damage to him. So Slaglith is a very difficult monster to get down in your magic or in your range floor. So be very wary of Slaglith, and he's gonna be a pain to take down. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So now we'll be moving into getting experience. Unfortunately with range, there's no real method that significantly gets better by manipulating our health down to 1, but there's an option that will give us better points, and it requires you to pay attention every minute or so. You will use the same gear setup as the point method above, so Full Void, Anguish, Assembler, Archer's Ring, and Pagations. Now for your weapon, you can either do a Blowpipe or a Magic Shortbow or Eye. Blowpipe will definitely give you more experience per hour. You're going to see at the end that it is significantly better than a Magic Shortbow, but the Magic Shortbow is around like half the speed, but significantly cuts the cost, so if you're really trying to watch your costs, definitely use the Magic Shortbow. It's going to save you a ton of money. It's really up to you though, so, you know, who am I to tell you how to play the game? If you do herb boxes though with this method, you'll definitely break even on your money spent. It'll just take a while to get that money back if you're using a blowpipe. If you do use a blowpipe though, have amethyst arrows in your quiver and a Magic Shortbow Eye in your inventory if you want to use the Magic Shortbow for your power surges, or have Dragon Throne Axes to replace the Magic Shortbow. Your inventory will have the spec weapon of your choice if you're using a blowpipe. You'll also have 8 overloads, your locator, orb, or rock cake, bone crusher if you want it, and the rest absorbs. The boss list we will be using will be Count Draenor, me, the Kendall, King World, and the Sand Snake. Set up a hard customizable rumble with these bosses in it and enter. Overload and get your health down to 1 HP. And begin attacking. Make sure that you have Auto Retaliate on and Flick Rapid Heal every 59 seconds to stay at 1 HP. It is important to stay at very low HP with this setup, as Void has absolutely garbage defense stats, and we will get hit a lot as it is. You don't want the bosses to start being able to hit above a 1, so that way it will actually preserve your absorb so you don't fly through your absorb super quick. The only power up we are concerned with here is Power Surge, and when that spawns, do the same as the setup above where you empty out your spec bar and then begin clicking on your special attack bar and just spam away to get a ton of experience. As you see with the blowpipe, I'm able to get about 130k an hour. I got pretty lucky with my power surges, and I would definitely recommend Dragon Throne Axes if you can get the timing down. If you can get the clicks correct, it is definitely worth it because the damage works with rigor. But if you are not confident with your timing of clicking every tick, then definitely do a Magic Shortbow, as it is much more forgiving with the timing, but less DPS. It's easier to pull off for that reason. So I heard somewhere that people love AFK, so Hey, I got you. You know me. I got you guys. So, use the same setup as above or max range. Max range is going to give you a little bit more defenses at the sacrifice of about 5k XP per hour. So, if you really want AFK, use max range. But if you can afford to pay a little bit more attention, then go ahead and use void because you're going to get that extra 5k an hour. You're going to be using the bosses as follows. You're going to be using Count Draenor, the Kendall, the Khazard Warlord, King World, Tree Spirit, and the Sand Snake, and you're going to go on a normal customizable rumble. Some of you may be wondering why we're using 7 instead. The main reason is Count Draenor. Now, the reason that we use Count Draenor is he has terrible stats overall. He has very low HP, so it's very easy to get down. But the reason that we want him in our floor and we want 7 people is because we want to have that boss that just does like absolutely nothing to us, but is also very easy for us to kill, very easy for us to get experience off of. But we don't want to get him all the time because if you just shred through him, if you get 4 of him and you just shred through him all the time, then you're going to have DPS downtime, and that's not what we want. We want to have a good mix of bosses so we can constantly be attacking something. So you have Count Draenor in your floor alongside 6 other bosses to increase that chance of getting a boss that will be able to sustain a little bit more, be able to take a few more hits so we don't just shred through them all the time and then we're just sitting there waiting for the next boss to spawn. So after you decide to go on a normal customizable rumble, your inventory is going to look a little bit different. You're going to take in 5 super ranging potions if you're using void, or 7 to 8 if you're using max range. Again, this is due to the defense bonuses, the defense differences. A bone crusher if you want it, and then fill up the rest of your inventory with absorbs. Go inside the dream with rapid and auto retaliate on, run into the middle of the room and drink up the absorbs to 1k, drink your super ranging potion and walk away and come back 20 minutes later and check on your stats and absorbs, then walk away again. You can swap out the super ranging potions for overloads if you want it, but it will require you to check every 5 minutes instead. This will increase your DPS by about 5k an hour or so. So pick your poison. As you saw with the MSBI, I was able to pull off at around 70k an hour. So quite a substantial difference between the blowpipe and magic shortbow, but the blowpipe method requires more money obviously due to darts and scales, as well as paying more attention because of having to stay on hard mode due to the high levels of DPS, whereas magic shortbow with max range, I was able to walk away for 20 minutes and not have to care. Okay, I don't know who wants this, but someone does. So let's talk about Magic in Nightmare Zone. I want to preface this by saying I do not promote this in any normal way of training Magic, as when you unlock Ancient Magics it is incredibly fast through Slayer or just normal bursting, but those of you that want to AFK for 20 minutes while I'm training Magic that's not splashing, I'll happily oblige here. Did you know that Obsidian Armor is actually one of the few armors in the game that gives 0 negative magic bonus? I'm not joking you, and literally get the defensive bonuses of like adamant armor and have no negative bonuses associated with it for magic. So we're going to take advantage of this. This is the equipment I used. This is the inventory I had. And the bosses that we will be killing here are Count Draenor, the Kendall, King World, Sand Snake, and me. I went on a hard normal rumble with Fire Wave and I AFK'd for about 20 minutes. You can throw in a Tome of Fire if you want to spend a little bit more money and use like a Smoke Battle Staff if you don't want to waste runes. Get more experience per hour. As you see here, I got around 70k an hour. It's obviously better than splashing. This is nowhere near some of the rates you're going to get while barraging. I would only advise this if you really want some AFK training on like an alt or something. But hey, it's a game. Who am I to tell you how to play, and who am I to tell you how to have fun? Alright, and there you go. I updated both of my Nightmare Zone guides from 2017. I also included magic in this one. I showed you guys how to get points with range, which I didn't think was possible, but it's actually pretty close to DH. So if you're a range only account, congratulations, you're in luck to get a pretty quick point method. If you guys did enjoy the video, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe if you want more content from the channel. You can follow me on Twitter as well as join my CC, which is in the description. And subscribe if you want more content for the channel. Pretty sure I already said that, but double plug is double plug. All right. Thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of day it is. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.